Welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs, aka the Pod Father. Do us a big favor, smash that like button right now. Don't wait, do it now. Hit the thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. It absolutely does help us out. And if you are enjoying the content that we produce here at the OHIO podcast, you can even take the next step and share our channel, share our content on your social media pages. Let everybody know that you enjoy listening to us here at the OHIO podcast as us Ohio State fans tell the stories from an Ohio State perspective to all of you and be a part of the OHIO podcast community and Buckeye Nation. Now, this edition of this episode is about how Ryan Day is playing three-dimensional chess while most of the NCAA football coaches out there are playing checkers. And I think I have some evidence to prove exactly that. Now, you're going to have to follow me here. If I had one of those boards with faces and red ribbons tied around thumbtacks, and it would look kind of crazy. And then from time to time, I put on a tinfoil hat, and I have some pretty wild, crazy football theories and Buckeye theories for you. And quite a few of them, well, they end up being true if you know how to just read the tea leaves and follow the news and kind of put two and two together. And that's what we're doing here. So, let's start today's story by sharing with you this story first. And we're going to go out to Lincoln, Nebraska first to talk about what in the world Coach Rule is doing, talking about canceling the spring game in the land of Lincoln. Now, Cornhusker fans aren't going to like that because Cornhusker fans love their football. And hats off to you Cornhuskers out there in the land of Lincoln. And if you're one of them, by all means, you need to be going to the Common Fan podcast. Those are our good friends over there at the College Huddle who cover the Nebraska the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Easy enough for me to say. They do the best job out there. So you need to go follow them if you are. But if you're not, and you're a Buckeye fan, check this out. So, Coach Rule recently said, and many of you probably have heard this, he said, I have been dealing with a lot of people offering our players a lot of opportunities after that, talking about the spring game. So, you go out and bring in a bunch of new players and showcase them for all the other schools to watch, question mark, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so he is considering canceling the spring game for Nebraska because quite frankly, he's tired of a lot of other schools calling his players and tampering with his roster. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Ohio State is squeaky clean when it comes to this thing called tampering. I'm pretty sure it is widespread all across the country. But I do know that for the most part, it appears that Ohio State is definitely above board and following the rules and regulations that the NCAA has laid out when it comes to how you contact players who enter the transfer portal. Do I believe that there are some individuals connected with the university who might make a phone call to an agent or a family member and say, hey, we have a need. Would your kid be interested? I'm not so naive to think that that might not take place. Have I heard it taking place? No, I haven't. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't. On the flip side, you've got to be kidding me how obvious some of the tampering is that's going on. Looking at you mainly, Oregon and Miami. You guys are awful at this. You're not hiding it at all. You're totally calling players, telling them what you would offer them, and you're doing it so illegally that it's ridiculous. Now, the NCAA has got its pants pulled down. It has no control over this thing. It is completely the wild, wild west. And until guardrails are in place, which is what every coach is asking for, but for some reason the NCAA can't do it, you're going to continue to see this awful tampering that's going on. Now, there's two players in particular here at Ohio State that obviously were tampered with. They never entered the transfer portal. They never put their name out there, yet they were contacted and even given dollar amounts to leave Ohio State and go and play at other universities. Carnell Tate, the wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, the other talented wide receiver. Carnell Tate was offered $1 million by Oregon to go leave Ohio State, go out west, and go play for the Ducks in 2025. What's the NCAA done about that? Nothing. How about Jeremiah Smith? Offered $4.5 million to leave Ohio State and go and play for the Miami Hurricanes. Just do a quick Google search. Everybody's reporting this. Yet, what has the NCAA done about it? Absolutely nothing. Can they do anything about it? I'm not sure. You would think they could, but apparently they're too, I guess, worried about other things than worried about trying to create rules and create guidelines that actually make sense in college football. But there's this huge issue now that Matt Rule's brought up, and that is this. You go through spring practice, you bring in all this talent, whether they're freshmen, sophomores, underclassmen, etc. You bring this talent in, you work with them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks in spring ball, sometimes four if you spread your practices out, and then you showcase them the last practice and you open that up for the fans, and usually it's a scrimmage setting there at your stadium, and it's televised, whether it be on the Big Ten network if you're Big Ten, ACC network, SEC network, ESPN, etc., right? And fans can come and watch, etc., scouts, you name it, right? Well, apparently last year in Nebraska, after that, there were quite a few players who were contacted that were showcased, as he liked to say, in his spring game, and were offered opportunities to leave Nebraska and get paid to go to other universities. Now, what's the issue with that? Well, that's because the second portal window opens up typically after the spring ball. So, if you're interested in when does the spring portal open, so the spring portal open according to my calculations here. The window opens on April 16th and is open for 10 days in 2025. So, interestingly enough, uh, interestingly enough, Ryan Day a couple days ago was interviewed by Joel Klatt, and he announced that they're going to be starting spring practice later than everybody else, later than we have in the past. Now, there's some obvious reasons why, and I'll get into those reasons why here in just a second. But I wanted to point out that there are several reasons why I believe Ryan Day did this. But I looked all over the place and through the NCAA handbook here. What are the rules concerning spring practice by the NCAA? There are really only three rules that I think pertain to this particular conversation we're having. Those rules are that the NCAA limits spring practices to a maximum of 15 days in a 34-day time frame. Okay? So you get 15 practices, 15 days in a 34-day time frame. So you can spread those out. Practices can take place over a 34-day period, like I said, and players must have at least 1 day off per week. There's nothing in the handbook about when those practices, as far as when they have to start and when they have to start. So, in other words, it can be anytime. It can be anytime while those kids are on campus in school. It could be in January. It could be all the way at the end of March going into April. Maybe you start at late March and you end it late April. Remember, when is the portal window again? The portal window this year is from April 16th to April 25th. Okay? So, what is Ryan Day doing here? Why did he announce that they're going to be starting spring practice much later than they typically have? I think there are three reasons why he's doing this. And I think the first two are absolutely obvious. Let's take a look at the first one. Ohio State just won the Natty in the longest season in college football history. And as he told Joe Klatt, we just need some time, man. We need to rest a little bit here. So, um, Ryan Day announced on the Joe Klatt show, he says spring ball is going to be different. We just got done playing 2 weeks ago, and spring ball starts the second to last week of March. But we also have young guys who need to work, so it's going to be unique this year. He said later on, we got to recharge a little bit, but that's all right. And once you recharge, then it's all systems go, and then you move forward. And we got a really good group of guys coming back. I mean, really good group of guys coming back. It's exciting. Did you catch that last part? I mean, a really good group of guys coming back. What is Matt Rule afraid of? People tampering with those players, contacting them, trying to get them to leave their program because of what they saw in the spring game, what they saw on television, right? If Ryan Day thinks he's got a really good group of young players who haven't been seen on television yet, and all of a sudden one of those guys goes on TV and he completely flashes, right? And right now, maybe his NIL, maybe he has 10 grand, I don't know, 100 grand at the most, right? And someone else sees him and they get on the phone with him and say, hey, we got a $750,000 waiting for you if you leave and come to Texas Tech, or you leave and you come to Washington, whatever, name the school, right? That's going to be enticing to that player. Absolutely. So he says, number one reason, we just won a national championship. The emotional, physical wear and tear of that on your body, these kids need a break. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they never take a break in athletics from the season that they're in, from the sport that they're playing. It's good to get away, especially as for these coaches as well as for these players, and just be kids, be students for a little while. Enjoy the spoils of war. Enjoy the booty you got, man, from winning a national championship, right? So go and enjoy those things for a little while. Number two, Ryan Day's got some hiring to do. We currently don't have an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, at least not one that has been announced yet at Ohio State. We're in need of a quarterbacks coach. We're in need of an offensive line coach. And if you believe the report that was announced yesterday that we discussed in yesterday's video from Buckeye Scoop, that means they're going to be doing some internal hiring. We'll see. Still nothing on that yet. And so I still believe I think Buckeye Scoop indeed had it first. I think they're right. But again, we will see. Only time will tell. But you don't currently have an OC or DC. Maybe they do. Maybe they're all in house already and we just don't know it yet. But let's say they aren't. Ryan Day is going to need those positions filled before they start spring ball, before they start spring practice here, okay? Now I remember they lost the running backs coach at spring practice a year ago in the middle of spring practice. He ups and leaves, right? And Ryan Day had to go and make a late hire. And while he was interviewing coaches for that position, he himself was coaching the running backs position and did a pretty good job. And I would say because the results speak for themselves. And before Coach Locke got here, but um, Ryan Day, Ryan Day's been able to adjust very well when unforeseen things like that pop up. But he doesn't currently have those things. That's the second reason. Number three, the third reason why he might be starting, you can't tamper with a roster if the spring game is after the portal window. There's no rule that says, hey, that last practice has to be inside the portal window. There's no rule in the NCAA that says that. He wants to bump this thing back to the very end of April so that the spring practices are basically when the windows open. it helps keep the roster together, guys. You can't jump in the portal if you don't know, am I going to have the job or not? And so if you're competing for the job and the idea is to say, hey, we don't know if you're going to win the job or not, and this was only the beginning of that competition, and that competition is going to go through fall camp, then those players are more likely to not jump in the portal uh, and following spring practice because number one, they're still in it, and number two, you haven't announced that they haven't won the position yet or lost the position. And so I think those players are more likely to stick it out longer. So I think there's a little bit of a gamesmanship here by Ryan Day. Like I said, I think he's playing a little bit three-dimensional chess while most programs are still playing checkers. And if there's one thing about Ryan Day that you've got to give the guy credit for, it is this. He is incredibly fast thinker on his feet and he adjusts incredibly well. He doesn't tend to make the same mistake twice, um, for the most part. Now, that game in the last game in November is a different story here, but we that's revisionist history. And I would say if the last four games in the college football playoff tell us anything, he learned a whole lot from November 30th until when Tennessee came into the shoe in December. And the following three games after that win over Tennessee tells us anything, it was this: Ryan Day learned a lot from that. And sometimes you have to take a step back in order to move forward, and that might have been what happened there in that situation. But my point is this: Ryan Day, as a head coach, seems to learn from his lessons incredibly well. Now, remember, most head coaches that come to Ohio State have had to learn, they've learned other places before they've got here. Urban Meyer, let's take him for instance. Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, before he came to Ohio State, right? Jim Tressel was at Youngstown State before he ever got to Ohio State. They had opportunities to learn how to be a head coach, to create a system, to create a culture, to build rosters, to build teams. They had made those mistakes early on as head coaches long before they ever got to Ohio State. And so those mistakes weren't televised in front of everybody learning how to become a head coach. They already knew how to be a head coach. Ryan Day had to learn on the job. It took him 6 seasons to do so, and the results at the end of year number 6 was a national championship. What I think we're seeing here by him saying, we're going to take a breath, we're going to take our time, we're going to go into this thing in the spring ball, we're going to go into this thing slower than everybody else because we just came through the longest season in college football history. I don't have my DC or OC yet. And quite frankly, there's all this tampering going on out here, and the NCAA is not be holding us to a certain schedule. We're going to take our time. And by the way, I have to make sure I have a roster in place to go compete in 2025. And so I'm just going to wait and then get started a little later than everybody else. That's what I think is going on here. Let me know what you think about my theory in the comments section below. Does it make sense to you? Is there something else that I'm missing? I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Do you agree with what I have to say? Again, let me know in the comments section below, guys. That absolutely helps the YouTube algorithm when you interact with each other and one another and comment in the comment section below. If you haven't already, smash that thumbs up button. Again, follow the channel, subscribe to it. Please consider becoming a member, only $3.99 a month. There's a lot of perks involved to that, including behind the scenes members only videos, including recruiting videos. We also you'll get a members only t-shirt after you've been a member for a month, and you get free shipping from the online store. Visit our online store by going to our website, theohiopodcast.com. Click on the store link. By the way, guys, our websites had the last 2 months had the most interaction we've ever had, most views on our website. Thank you for visiting. Continue to visit. We have stories up all the time, news stories just about every single day from what's going on on campus over at the Ohio State University, including the football team and much more. Basketball, hockey, you name it, we're talking about it over there on the website at theohiopodcast.com. Again, thanks for watching. Thank you for your time. You guys, you know what to do. Be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. St. Carmen, Ohio, with all your heart. Go Bucks.